Yeah, good morning. Songaloo here. While I'm busy losing money betting on college basketball today, I figured I'd get on here and rant and rave for a second. I don't give a fuck who your team's general manager is. I don't know why this has started to bother me so much over the last couple of months. Well, really over the last few weeks. I'm normally when I get pissed off about something, I convince myself that like I'm right in being pissed off and like whatever it is I'm pissed off about is completely wrong and everyone should agree with me. This isn't really the case on this. There may be some people who disagree with me here, and maybe I'm in the wrong, and maybe I need to be convinced about why this shouldn't piss me off, but I'm sick of hearing about everybody's general manager or in college football, or like yesterday I'm riding down the road in the car and I'm listening to satellite radio, some whatever college football show they had on the college football channel over there. And they're going on and on about how Washington has hired a coordinator of contract negotiations and cap management, or director of contract negotiations and cap management. I don't look. I'm serious. It would be impossible for me to care any less who Washington's director of contract negotiations and cap management is. Georgia's my favorite team. The majority of you probably know that. I'm a huge college football fan, but Georgia's my favorite team. I'm going to be completely honest with you right now, and maybe I deserve, like I said, I'm willing to admit I'm wrong on everything I'm saying in this video. So feel free to convince me in the comment section why I'm wrong about not caring. I don't know if Georgia has a general manager. I've got no idea, nor do I fucking care. Well, let me back up. I do care. But I don't know who it is, and I don't want to know. I don't. Okay, let me put it this way. I don't care who it is. I don't need to be bombarded with headlines every single day about who some new team's general manager is, or now Washington has created a new position out of thin air called Director of Contract Negotiations and Cap Management. Now, what I mean is, when I say I don't care who it is, or in Georgia's case, I don't know who it is, I want Georgia to have whatever it is that everybody else has so that they're not at some sort of competitive disadvantage. In other words, well, let me put it to you this way. I'm 100% positive that Georgia has someone or a group of someones that's in charge of the team's nutrition. In other words, what they eat, what they don't eat, when they eat, how much they eat. If you're offensive lineman, for example, they or defensive lineman, they may want somebody to put on 20 pounds in the offseason. So they've got a nutritionist or a team of nutritionists that develops a dietary plan for that specific player, and so that he can gain 20 pounds, or maybe another player needs to lose 20 pounds. Like, I want Georgia to have that. Other teams have it. I guess there's obviously a benefit there. The teams wouldn't be doing it. I couldn't tell you who it is. I couldn't tell you one person on Georgia's nutrition staff, and I don't care who. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. I don't need to know. I don't care to know. And I feel the same way about your team's general manager, or Georgia's general manager, or Washington's director of contract negotiations and cap management. Now, look, I get it. A lot has changed in college football over the last few years, and I think this is part of my aggravation. None of us really like all these changes that have occurred, and it's not even that I'm against any one specific change. NIL, for example, which has been the sort of root or the cause of a lot of these changes. Generally speaking, I am in favor of NIL. All of you know that. I've talked about it for years. I believe that a player should be able to sell his autograph. I believe that, if there's a quarterback for some team that's popular and well-known, and a car dealership down the street wants to pay that quarterback $10,000 or $1 million to appear in a commercial or whatever, they can do that. If Dr. Pepper wants to sign, Arch Manning or something to a national television deal, I believe they should be able to do that, and Arch Manning should get paid for that. I believe in the principle of NIL as it was laid out and designed. I don't like what NIL has turned into, which is just paying players for nothing. You're not. these teams have these collectives and all this kind of shit, and you have to have it, because if you don't have it, the team down the street has it, or the next state over, or your rival, or whatever. So you have to have it, and you have to do it. I don't like what it's turned into. These players that are getting this NIL money, they're not getting it for promoting products or appearing in commercials. Now, in some cases they are, but generally speaking, y'all know what's going on here. Team A wants this quarterback, so Team A's NIL collective just pays that quarterback $1 million to come to that team, and they call it an NIL deal. They don't really do anything. What, do they make a couple of Instagram posts or something? So I don't like what it's turned into, but I'm okay with the idea of NIL. And a lot of this stuff has come out of that, right? So now these teams need a general manager to manage the roster, right? How many players are leaving for the NFL? How many are graduating? How many are leaving early? How many players are in the portal? Okay, that puts our roster at 61 players. Okay, that means we need 44 more to get to the new cap of 105. Well, where are we going to get those 44 players? Well, we're going to get 25 from high school. Okay, that leaves us 19 short. Okay, well, you got to go get 19 from the portal. Like, I understand you need a general manager to kind of handle that. The reality is, these coaches in college football now, there wasn't enough time in the day 10 years ago for coaches to do everything they needed to do in the world of college football. Now all this additional shit's been piled in their lap with NIL and transfer portals and roster limits, and players can transfer wherever they want, whenever they want. You need somebody to sort of monitor that, to keep an eye on that, to be in charge of that. And the head coach just doesn't have the time, right? Not that the head coach isn't involved in any of that. He is. He's the final decision maker. The shit rolls downhill, whatever. The buck stops here. But you got to have somebody that you can delegate that to. So I understand that the teams may find themselves in a situation where they need a general manager, in the same way that 20 years ago, teams decided, you know what? Maybe we should hire some nutritionists. Maybe we should hire a bunch of rehab people, so that when these players are coming back from injuries, we've got a team of doctors or orthopedists or rehab people that can sort of get them back up to speed. Maybe we need an indoor practice facility. I look at general managers and whatever else the same way I look at all of that. Yeah, I'm glad Georgia has an indoor practice facility. I don't need to see a headline about it every single day. I don't need to know. It's not groundbreaking, fucking earth-shattering news that Washington has hired a director of contract negotiation and cap management, a brand new position that pretty soon every other team in the country is going to have too. And again, I want Georgia to have whatever is available for anyone else to have, because I don't want Georgia to be at a competitive disadvantage against anybody else. But I don't give a fuck who the general manager is. If Georgia wants to create a position called Director of Cap Management and Contract Negotiations, go ahead. I mean, look, the schools now, in addition to NIL, I mean, this is just every single offseason. And I think this is what it is more than anything else. We don't hear stories like this, generally speaking, during the season. Why? There's actual football to talk about. And while I'm a huge college football fan, and to some degree I love all aspects of college football, what draws us all to college football in the first place is the actual fucking games themselves. And that only lasts about 4 months. College football's got the longest offseason on planet Earth. And because they've completely fucked up the calendar in college football to where everything happens in like a 5-week period from December to January 20th or whatever it is, conference championship games. The next day, playoff selection. 4 days later, early signing day. The transfer portal window opens. Playoff games before Christmas. Playoff games on New Year's Eve. National championship game on January 20th. Last signing day on February 3rd. You've got basically a 60-day window where everything in the world of college football that doesn't have to do with the games themselves is all happening while the playoffs of the national championship are going on, instead of spreading that shit out over the course of the year so that we have something to talk about in the middle of February, instead of the Washington fucking Huskies creating a position called cap management or whatever the fuck else. I would much rather get on here and make videos about how Florida is hyping themselves up for no fucking reason again because they only lost 5 games last year and DJ Lagway had 12 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So, and they've built statues and are throwing parades for that. And therefore, that means they're going 100-0 next year and winning the World Series of Poker. I would much rather be making videos about that. Florida fans embarrassing themselves. The off-season fucking hype train that we get every single year. And I talk about this every off-season. You've got two sort of competing factors. On one side, you've got the off-season hype train. On the other side, you've got week 1, right? You remember the old SAT question thing or whatever the fuck it was where, well, if a train leaves Chicago heading towards New York at 1 p.m. on Saturday, and at the exact same time on the exact same track, a train leaves New York heading for Chicago at 1 p.m., and train A is going 100 miles an hour, and train B is going 120 miles per hour, at what point do they collide? Well, when it comes to college football, train A is off-season hype. Train B is week 1. The point at which they collide is reality. And I talk about the wave of reality that sets into college football fans every year, a couple of weeks into the season, once they realize that no, DJ Lagway is not winning the Cy Young, and Florida is not winning the World Cup, or anything else for that matter. I would much rather talk about that kind of shit. But no, I have to get bombarded with who Washington hired as their director of cap management and contract negotiations, because you've got NIL, which is always had. You got a whole other group of people handling that. Now the schools are paying the players up to $20 million a year, not a piece, total, spread out among all the athletic departments. So you got to have some dumb fuck named director of contract negotiations and cap management so he can decide that the starting left tackle is going to get $80,000 this year, but the starting left guard's only going to get $50,000. So then the starting left guard gets mad because he's making $30,000 a year less from the university than the starting left tackle is, and the head coach can go, hey, don't get mad at me. Get mad at that guy. He's the director of cap management and contract negotiations. Go yell at him. Don't yell at me. Have a great fucking day.